Most people believe that the end of life arrives suddenly. One day, everything seems normal. A person wakes up, follows their usual routine, speaks with family, and carries on with daily life. Then, without warning, everything changes. Because of this, many people imagine that the final stage of life appears all at once, like a door closing unexpectedly. But reality is often much quieter than that. For many older adults, the body begins to communicate long before the final chapter arrives. It does not announce itself loudly. It does not demand attention. Instead, it speaks through small changes that are easy to miss. A little less energy, a little less interest in food, more time spent resting, more moments of silence. These changes often happen so gradually that family members may not notice them at first. Sometimes they are mistaken for ordinary aging. Sometimes they are dismissed as temporary phases. And sometimes they are simply overlooked because life is busy and our attention is focused elsewhere. But understanding these changes can make a meaningful difference. Before we continue, it is important to understand something very clearly. This video is not meant to create fear, sadness, or anxiety. In fact, its purpose is exactly the opposite. The goal is awareness. The goal is understanding. The goal is helping families recognize what their loved ones may be experiencing, so they can respond with greater compassion, patience, and care. When we understand what is happening, we are less likely to react with frustration. We are less likely to misunderstand silence as rejection, or fatigue as laziness. Instead, we begin to see these moments for what they truly are, part of a natural human journey that every person experiences in their own way. And perhaps most importantly, awareness allows us to make the most of the time we still have together. Because at this stage of life, comfort often matters more than productivity. Presence often matters more than advice. And simple moments, a conversation, a shared meal, a hand held in silence, can become more meaningful than we ever imagined. It is also important to remember that every person's experience is different. The signs we will discuss today are general observations that have been noticed in many elderly individuals. They are not a medical diagnosis, and they should never be used to predict any specific outcome. Only qualified healthcare professionals can properly evaluate an individual's medical condition. Think of this video as a guide to understanding, not a guide to predicting. So, as we move through these signs together, I invite you to listen with an open mind and a compassionate heart. Perhaps you will recognize some of these changes in someone you love. Perhaps you will better understand your own experience of aging. Either way, the purpose is not to fear what lies ahead. The purpose is to appreciate the value, dignity, and meaning that remain present in every stage of life. Now, let's take a closer look at these signs, one by one, with care, respect, and understanding. Sign number 1. A deep and persistent loss of energy. One of the earliest changes many families notice is a gradual decline in energy. At first, it may seem insignificant. Perhaps they spend a little more time sitting down. Maybe they take longer to finish simple tasks. But over time, the difference becomes more noticeable. You may see them pick up a book and lose interest after only a page or two. Activities they once enjoyed begin to feel exhausting. Even getting dressed, walking to another room, or having a long conversation can require more effort than before. This is different from ordinary tiredness. A good night's sleep may not restore the same level of energy. Rest helps, but it doesn't completely remove the fatigue. The body is simply working differently now. It begins conserving energy, directing its resources toward the functions that matter most. For family members, this can be difficult to accept. We naturally want our loved ones to stay active. We encourage them to move more, do more, and participate more. But sometimes the greatest gift is not encouragement. Sometimes it is permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to slow down without feeling like they are disappointing anyone. At this stage, comfort matters more than productivity, and understanding that difference can bring a great deal of peace to everyone involved. Sign number 2. A gradual reduction in appetite. Food has always been connected to life, strength, and care. That is why changes in eating habits can be especially emotional for family members. You may notice meals becoming smaller. Favorite foods no longer seem as appealing. Portions that were once normal begin to feel overwhelming. They may take a few bites and quietly stop eating. Naturally, this can create concern. You may find yourself saying, "You need to eat more." You may worry they are becoming weaker. But often, this change is not a matter of choice. As the body ages, digestion slows. Hunger signals become less intense. The body simply requires less energy than it once did. What often helps most is shifting the focus away from quantity and toward comfort. A favorite soup, a familiar dessert, a warm cup of tea. Small pleasures can carry more meaning than large meals. Rather than turning every meal into a struggle, it may be more valuable to create moments of enjoyment and connection around food. Because sometimes the conversation shared at the table matters more than the amount eaten. Sign number 3. Increased vulnerability to illness and slower healing. There comes a point when recovery no longer happens as quickly as it once did. A minor cold that would have disappeared in a few days may linger for weeks. A small infection may require more attention. A minor injury may heal more slowly than expected. This can feel frustrating, especially for family members who remember a stronger version of the person they love. But the body's natural defenses change with age. The immune system becomes less efficient. Healing processes take more time. Recovery demands more energy. What once required a few days may now require several weeks. This does not mean all hope is lost. It simply means expectations may need to change. Instead of asking, "Why aren't they better yet?" a more helpful question becomes, "What do they need to feel comfortable today?" Sometimes healing is no longer about speed. Sometimes it is about patience. Gentle care, calm surroundings, and reduced stress can become just as important as medical treatment itself. Sign number 4. Becoming quieter and more reflective. Many people notice that older adults gradually become less talkative. They may participate less in conversations. They may decline invitations. They may spend longer periods alone. At first glance, this can appear concerning. Family members often wonder if something is wrong. Are they lonely? Are they depressed? Do they feel disconnected? Sometimes those concerns are valid. But often there is another explanation. As people age, many naturally become more reflective. Their attention begins turning inward. They spend time thinking about experiences, memories, relationships, and lessons learned over a lifetime. Silence does not always mean sadness. Sometimes silence is simply peace. Sometimes it is contentment. Sometimes it is a person quietly appreciating the journey they have lived. If you find yourself sitting beside someone who speaks less than they once did, do not feel pressured to fill every moment with conversation. Your presence alone may be enough. A hand on their shoulder, a smile, a few minutes shared together. These small gestures often communicate more than words ever could. Sign number 5. Changes in sleep patterns. Sleep often begins to follow a different rhythm. You may notice they sleep more during the day and less during the night. They may wake frequently. They may nap unexpectedly. They may rest in shorter periods rather than one continuous stretch. This change can be confusing for families. Many assume something must be wrong. But often, the body is simply adjusting its internal rhythm. Energy levels fluctuate differently. Physical activity decreases. Natural sleep cycles shift. Trying to force a perfect schedule may only create frustration. Instead, focus on comfort. Make rest accessible whenever it is needed. Allow flexibility. Provide a peaceful environment. At this stage, the goal is not perfect sleep. The goal is restorative rest, whenever the body asks for it. And sometimes accepting a new rhythm is far more helpful than trying to restore an old one. Sign number 6. Looking back more than looking forward. One of the most meaningful changes occurs in conversation. Older adults often begin revisiting memories from earlier chapters of life. Stories from childhood. Stories about raising children. Stories about friendships, careers, victories, mistakes, and moments that shaped who they became. You may hear the same story multiple times. At first, it can feel repetitive, but if you listen carefully, you may discover something deeper. These stories are not merely memories, they are reflections. The mind is organizing a lifetime of experiences, finding meaning, making sense of the journey. In many ways, storytelling becomes a bridge between generations. It allows wisdom, values, and family history to be passed forward. When someone repeats a story, try not to focus on the repetition. Focus on the person telling it. Notice the emotions behind the words. Notice what that memory means to them. Because one day, those stories will no longer be available. And many people later realize they wish they had listened more carefully while they had the chance. Sign number 7. A quiet sense of completion. Perhaps the most subtle change is not physical at all. It is emotional. You may notice your loved one beginning to organize personal belongings. They may start giving away treasured possessions. They may express wishes they have never discussed before. They may seek reconciliation with family members. Old disagreements suddenly seem less important. Unfinished matters become more important. Many families find this stage difficult to understand. It can feel uncomfortable. It can even feel frightening. But often, it is not driven by fear. It is driven by clarity. After decades of living, many people develop a stronger understanding of what truly matters. They realize that relationships are more valuable than possessions. Peace is more valuable than conflict. Love is more valuable than pride. And so they begin simplifying, not because they are giving up, but because they are focusing on what matters most. If you notice this happening, resist the urge to correct or dismiss their feelings. Instead, listen. Allow conversations to unfold naturally. Offer reassurance. Offer companionship. And most importantly, offer your presence. Because during this period, people often remember how they were treated far more than what was said. In the end, these changes are not signs of failure. They are not signs that life has lost its value. They are simply reminders that life moves through different seasons. Each season asks something different of us. In youth, we are asked to grow. In adulthood, we are asked to build. And later in life, we are often invited to reflect, connect, and appreciate. Understanding these changes allows us to meet our loved ones with greater compassion. It allows us to replace frustration with patience. It allows us to replace fear with understanding. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that even in life's quietest moments, there is still dignity, meaning, and love. As we come to the end of this discussion, I want to leave you with one important thought. The signs we've talked about today are not meant to make anyone afraid. They are not a countdown. They are not a prediction. And they are certainly not a reason to lose hope. Instead, they are reminders. Reminders that life changes in ways that are often quiet and gradual. Reminders that aging is not simply a physical process. It is also an emotional journey, a deeply human experience that deserves understanding, patience, and compassion. If you have recognized some of these signs in a parent, a spouse, a grandparent, or someone close to you, try not to focus on what may be changing. Focus on what still remains. The smile that appears when they hear a familiar voice. The comfort they feel when someone sits beside them. The warmth of a shared memory. The simple joy of being seen, heard, and loved. Sometimes we spend so much time worrying about what lies ahead that we forget to appreciate what is still here today. And that is often where the most meaningful moments are found. Not in grand events, not in perfect circumstances, but in ordinary moments that suddenly become extraordinary because they are shared with someone we love. If there is one lesson many people learn later in life, it is this. Time feels endless, until one day it doesn't. The conversation you postpone, the visit you keep delaying, the story you've heard 100 times. One day, those opportunities may no longer be available. And when that day comes, very few people wish they had spent more time working, worrying, or rushing through life. Most people simply wish they had spent more time being present, listening, laughing, holding a hand, saying the things that truly mattered. So if someone came to your mind while watching this video, perhaps today is a good day to call them, visit them, sit with them, ask them a question about their life. Listen to a story you've heard before, as if it were the first time. You may discover that those moments become some of the most valuable memories you will ever have. And if you are watching this as an older adult yourself, please remember this. Your life still matters. Your stories still matter. Your presence still matters. The wisdom you carry has value, and there are people whose lives are richer because you are part of them. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you noticed any of these changes in a loved one, or perhaps in yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience may help someone else who is going through a similar journey. And if this video brought you comfort, understanding, or a new perspective, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about healthy aging, life lessons, family, and the wisdom that helps us navigate every stage of life with dignity and grace. Thank you for spending these moments with me today. Take care of yourself, take care of the people you love, and remember, every stage of life, even the quietest ones, still holds meaning, value, and beauty.